This year's important because we're celebrating 125 years of the foundation of our congregation.
As Sisters of St. Peter Claver. It all started the 29th of April, 1894.
Saving souls with a drop of ink. I felt that was me.
As Sisters of St. Peter Claver, we are helping the missionaries. It is all God's grace, you know.
I see the sisters as the family.
This year marks the 125th anniversary of the founding of the Missionary Sisters of St. Peter Claver. The eldest of 7 children, Mary Teresa Ledowhowska, was born in Austria on April the 29th, 1863, to Count Anthony and his wife Josephine. From her parents, Mary Teresa inherited not only their noble blood, but also a heart sensitive for the needy.
And Mary Teresa was a very sensitive young woman, sensitive to the needs of the world around her, largely through the influence of her father. She had herself experienced illness, experienced unrequited love, and been through trials. Her family had lost their fortune in the bank crash in Vienna, and as a result, in the end, they moved to a small property in Lubnica, Moravana.
Even though she grew up in a very religious family, Mary Teresa did not hear much about the missions in her youth. In 1885, Mary Teresa became a lady-in-waiting to the Grand Duchess Alice of Tuscany.
She was working like a lady-in-waiting in the palace in Austria. So suddenly she wanted to help mission. She left everything, that high position, and living like a poor lady, and with self-sacrifice, she did everything to help to promote the missionaries' needs. So that meaning she was living in a wealthy situation, and she wanted to leave everything for this cause.
In the midst of the glamour of court life, she was exposed for the first time to the needs of the missionary world. 2 Franciscan missionaries of Mary came to Salzburg to seek financial help for their missionary work. The lady-in-waiting listened with interest as the 2 women religious shared their experiences of working with the lepers in Madagascar.
Mary Teresa was very frail physically. She knew she could never go as a missionary to Africa. She wouldn't resist, but she had the talent to write.
Well, eventually she read a pamphlet from a cardinal called Cardinal Lavigerie. Now, Cardinal Lavigerie was the founder of the White Fathers and the White Sisters, and he was at that time the primate of Africa.
His call bore fruit in Mary Teresa, who would one day say, "I myself would not be here before you today, and I would probably still be a lady-in-waiting at court in Austria if by chance I had not seen a pamphlet by Cardinal Lavigerie which gave me the incentive to devote myself to his mission."
Cardinal Lavigerie was in London and he gave a conference, and our foundress read the transcript of that conference, and at one point in it he says, "Christian women of Europe, if God has given you a writer's talent, put it at the service of this cause. You will find none holier."
As Mary Teresa's involvement with the missions grew, she began a mission page in a Catholic periodical. These mission features, called Echo from Africa, were based on correspondence from African missionaries. The page of letters evolved into a monthly magazine, which made its debut in 1889.
So she started writing about the missions, publishing her articles in various Catholic magazines. Then something happened which she hadn't expected. She gave the address of Cardinal Lavigerie of various missionaries in all her articles. But people in Austria 125 years ago didn't know how to send the money to Africa. At that time, the banking system was not existing there. what did they do? They sent the donations to the editor, to the person writing those articles. And she found herself now in a two-way correspondence, thanking benefactors and donors for the donations, sending the gifts to the missions, asking the missionaries for greater details about what was happening in their various missions.
The magazine soon became a full-time job, and Emperor Franz Joseph personally released Mary Teresa from her court duties in 1891 so that she could devote all her time and energy to the missions.
But as she began to become involved in that work, she began to have more contact with missionaries working in different parts of the world, and she began to realise just how necessary the spreading of the gospel was, because she began to understand that, you can make all the laws you want, you can abolish slavery, you can put an end to it legally, but if you don't change minds and hearts by the truth of the gospel, nothing will ever change. And if we can see that so clearly today, slavery is more prevalent now than it ever was. And if its minds and hearts aren't changed by the gospel, it just continues.
Today, the Sisters of St. Peter Clever serve the missionary church from 42 houses in 23 countries, spanning 5 continents.
We follow the same style of life wherever we are in the world, pretty much the same routine. There'll be some adaptations for culture and context and situations, but more or less it's the same. So you can feel at home in any of our houses, really, because you're following a very similar pattern of life. Prayer is one of the most important aspects of our life, and we give lots of time in our day to prayer. We try to maintain this balance between a contemplative life and an active life. So we try to be contemplative in action, but we also try to give time to contemplative prayer. We have daily meditation and daily Eucharistic adoration. We have also time for spiritual reading. We pray the office together, and we do the Ignatian examen every day. The type of work that we do depends on each sister's skills. It depends on the needs of the places we are. It varies. Many of our sisters are still involved in publications and work like that. Some are involved in administration, writing letters to our benefactors, keeping them involved, keeping in touch with them. Others go out. They'll go out and visit schools. They'll go and visit primary schools, secondary schools, parishes. Just depends on each individual sister, really. And then there's the day-to-day life in our communities. We cook for ourselves, we clean for ourselves, we try to eat together, and we try to spend time together as well. So we give priority to that in our lives.
It's great. Some sisters also are involved in child adoption, so they might be going to different country, see the situation, and then organize through the different houses in Europe the practical help for those children. Make sure the biggest problem is today with education in the mission countries. So together, book and pencil and few things that are needed for the school, for those children, it's opening in a sense heaven to them, because as we all know, education is so important today for us, for all of us, and especially for the girls, for the young women in mission lands and many countries. They just don't simply bother about the education of the girls. And yet it is so important, because if they know a little bit more in education, they will be able to pass to their children, and they will be able to look better after their families.
See, the difference with us, though, and that's one of the hardest things about our charisms, we're not parish sisters, we're not teachers, we're not nurses, so people are a bit like, what are they doing, but we have to have that global focus, that wider focus, and it's hard, because we're so tempted to be doing all those other things as well, because we see the need, but then nobody will be keeping that eye on the missions.
Soon the work of promoting and supporting the needs of missionaries in Africa could no longer be considered a one-woman effort. On the 29th of April 1894, Pope Leo XIII formally blessed Mary Teresa's enterprise, deeming the St. Peter Claver Sodality a pious association, which gradually developed into a religious community. Mary Teresa, led by the Holy Spirit, enlisted auxiliary missionaries and placed her work under the patronage of the Spanish Jesuit missionary St. Peter Claver, whose life ministry earned him the title of Apostle to the Slaves. Mary Teresa's vision took shape gradually, emerging in wonderful form.
Her first thing was the printing press in Austria, and that printing press was it was amazing because it was generated by the electricity came from the river. She managed to harness electricity from the river to power the printing press. I mean, she was way ahead of her times. But as time went on, the congregation decided to start printing presses in different parts of the world as well.
The printing press of the sisters was the biggest printing press, I would say, in East Africa at the time. And also what we have today, you know, this digital world was not yet there. So everything was in the printing press. In actual fact, they were still using metal when I first came. And even books would be coming from, people would be coming from Tanzania to bring their work to be printed there, because that was the only press which could do big work, big jobs then. And it was started by the missionary sisters of St. Peter Claver. Because of their charism, they had to print religious books in the local languages of the people. That was already from the line of the foundress of the congregation, Blessed Mary Teresa Ledochowska, that people, missionaries would find it easy to teach the people using their local language, using the catechisms in the local language of the people.
For the next 25 years, the foundress roamed Europe, enlisting people of all walks of life to help her congregation support evangelization in Africa. Realizing that the missionaries were in urgent need of books in local languages, she expanded her work, producing everything from Bibles and hymnals to dictionaries in local languages.
So whilst we would still promote and support the publication of Bibles and catechisms and religious textbooks in the languages of the people, we don't print them ourselves anymore. The same with liturgical vestments. We used to make the vestments for the missions, but now, because of the way of the world, it's just not feasible anymore, so we try to support the production of them in country.
Pope Pius X gave his final approval to the constitutions in 1910. The Lady-in-Waiting's dream blossomed into an international mission aid network. Her reward came when the recipients of her generous support offered gratitude for the assistance, calling Mary Teresa Mother of the Africans. The gruelling schedule of appearances and editing took its toll on Mary Teresa. Despite suffering from tuberculosis, she worked to the very end, passing away on July 6, 1922. The thousands of missionaries she had supported through prayers, encouragement and material help felt as though they had lost a mother. Mary Teresa Ledochowska was beatified by Pope Paul VI on October 19, 1975, Mission Sunday.
That in 1975, our founders, Mary Teresa, was beatified in Rome, and I had an opportunity to be there. I was a junior sister there, and for me, that was really a big sign that now she is in heaven for sure, and whatever work she did, it is worth following also, because our work is, sometimes it is hidden, like dispatching work for ECHO and things like that. But when we think of that make fruit to help the missionaries. So to do that, we need a really spirit, special spirit. So mainly I look our mother found us because she started this work, and we want to continue.
The Holy Father cited her selfless, creative response to Jesus' command to go and teach all nations. In advance of Vatican II, Mary Teresa proclaimed that every Christian is a missionary by means of baptism. She left her spiritual daughters with the responsibility of informing all Catholics of their duty to bring the good news of God's love to the whole world. And so, 125 years on, the missionary sisters of St. Peter Claver continue to carry out the important work of mission throughout the world.
Every country has a lot of different nationalities nowadays, and so it's great being international. We have sisters from different nationalities, and in most of our communities there are 2 or 3 nationalities, and it's great because we can share our upbringing, our culture, but we also can share with others the situation in which we lived, which we grew, and what's going on, the way we work today, helping the missions.
No, I hope that it will grow, and what our mother foundress wanted will come true. That is, we give ourselves totally to continue this work.
It's a congregation that has a mission that's ever valid, I think, because wherever there are baptised people, there's the call to mission. And all of us, with no exceptions, are called to mission. And I think that we have to always be that reminder, and we have to always try to encourage people to live out that commitment wherever they are and however they live it. Everyone's called to do it in a different way, but we're all called to do it. And I think that it's something that will become more and more important even as time goes on, because we're trying so hard to privatise faith, I think, but our faith is something to be shared.
And how many, even in our former Christian countries, do not know anything about Christ today? And how many in various parts of the world have not yet heard the good news? They don't know how much God loves them. And I think that is the most important message that can be given. Every human being has a value. Every human being is loved. Every human being is wanted, specifically, individually by God, treasured by God. We are all God's work of art. St. Paul tells us in one of his letters. We are all children of God, called to share in His love, sharing it now here on earth and sharing it forever.
It's a real sense of blessing, you know, that the Lord took our congregation and has allowed it to grow and to develop until now. You know, 125 years. It's not a short period of time, so it's great to know that we've come through all of that time and we're looking towards the future. You know, there are some signs of growth still within the congregation, so there is hope for the future as well.